Okay, it's 11 o'clock on a Tuesday, and that means it's time for Tea and New Book Tuesday. I think I'm live right now, but I'm not super sure because it's still filling out the little bar. But yeah, I think I am now. Okay, let's go ahead and get into this. First up, I'm having my tea for today. I'm having Tea Forte's Vanilla Pear White Tea, which is really good. But like I said last week, Tea Forte is really good, but they're ridiculously expensive. It's like, I think this box on Amazon is like $20, which is slightly ridiculous for tea, considering there's I think 10 in the box. Not 10 flavors, 10 tea bags. So like I said, I asked for it as a gift at Christmas or on my birthday, and that's good enough for me. Let's get into our slides. Since I push all the right buttons. There we go. All right. Start our Tea and New Book Tuesday for today. Today we're going to talk about yellow labels, which is, yes, okay. Yellow labels, which are, here at Mobile Public Library, yellow labels are mystery, suspense, and thriller. So I'm doing nonfiction that is crime adjacent. Nonfiction doesn't have yellow labels because they have call numbers. But I'm doing yellow label new series. So this is a group of series that are coming out. The first book is coming out, so I can tell you what the series is going to be about and what this first book is about and see if you're going to like it and find your new favorite series. And then, of course, we'll go into fiction, as we always do. And let's talk right now about what I'm reading. I started Home Before Dark by Riley Sager, which I've read Sager's two other books. Sager's written far more than 2 other books, but I've read 2. I read Final Girls, and I think it was called Lock the Door Behind You or something like that. Both of which were solid, but they're kind of like horror light. There's a thing where mystery can blend into horror pretty easily. And for some reason, even though Sanger is a male writer, he almost always has female protagonists, which I don't know how I feel about. But the big thing I wanted to say about Home Before Dark, since I'm probably not going to finish it, is it powerfully reminds me of The Haunting of Hill House. And it's only small elements, like it's about a haunted house that the family thought that they were going to flip or live in, and they then fled not very long afterwards. And the kids don't really remember what happened. In Haunting of Hill House, there's 5 kids. In Home Before Dark, there's only 1. And then once the second generation is an adult, she realizes after her father dies that he never sold the house, even though he wrote a book about it being haunted, and she's lived with that story her whole life. She believes he lied about it, and she doesn't know what really happened. So yeah, it's distracting how much it reminded me of Hill House, and I think Hill House might be a little bit better. So I may jump over and read Bloodline because Nat Galley has given me a copy, and it's already in my Kindle. And I keep seeing ads about it, and I think it might be interesting. It's a horror that we talked about in December because it came out this month, and it's about a woman who moves to her fiance's hometown, and it seems like the perfect hometown until it isn't. So we'll see if that's any good and if I actually finish it. For today's giveaway is a surprise, so I'm not going to tell you until I tell you. Okay. All right, let's start off with this nonfiction. And as always with nonfiction, half the time they give you enough of a description in the title and the subtitle. So some of them I don't have a lot to say about. I just want you to know that they're coming out. So we start with Halfway Home, Race, Punishment, and the Afterlife of Mass Incarceration by Reuben Jonathan Miller. Miller is a sociologist. He's an expert on incarceration in America's prison system. His thesis of the book is essentially that the idea that someone can pay their debt to society and then return to a full life in America is a myth. He believes, based on his research, based on the interviews with many people involved in the situation, that the prison system isn't really rehabilitating people. It's, that the parole system keeps them in poverty and that the overall system is set up for them to fail. The US has the most incarcerated people in the world, which wasn't mentioned in this description, but I went ahead and double checked it because I've heard it so many times. And I found it in a couple of sources. And then when I was making my notes for this, I started to type, the US has the most incarcerated, and Google immediately filled out the rest of the sentence with in the world. So how we treat the 2 million people who are in prison and the hundreds of thousands that get out every year, and whether or not they're being rehabilitated and rejoining society and able to be full law-abiding members of society, should eventually matter to us all. So Miller's book is partly a call to action and does also offer ways in which you can change, or ways in which you can fight for change within the system. There's no early reviews yet, but it's nonfiction, so that's completely normal. If you're interested in Halfway Home, it comes out February 2nd. All right. Tangled Up in Blue, Policing the American City by Rosa Brooks. This I thought was really interesting because it comes from a very unique perspective. Brooks is or was or still is a law professor at Georgetown University. And she decided to become, I think it's the official name is a reserve police officer. So in order to be a reserve police officer, which is all volunteer, although I suppose all of it is volunteer, she had to go through the same academy, she had to do weapons training, and she carried a weapon and actually like policed the streets in neighborhoods I don't think she had spent much time in before this. She became part of the DC Police Department. The idea of the book, one of the reasons I wanted to suggest this is because it is someone who comes from a little more outside the system. I'd like to say it's an outside perspective, but there is no outside perspective. We're all affected by policing in America. That's the reality of living in a community. But she is a relatively privileged, educated white woman. And that isn't necessarily a demographic that ends up as a police officer. So she feels everything she has to add to the conversation. The description says it ultimately leads to more complexity rather than simplification. But I think it would probably be really interesting, particularly because it looks like her family was just stunned and had no idea that this would be a thing she would want to do. And I think she probably has some interesting insights to share. But if you're interested in Tangled Up in Blue, it comes out February 9th. Yeah, this is another one we don't need to go into for very long. Why the Innocent Plead Guilty and the Guilty Go Free and Other Paradoxes of a Broken Legal System by Jed S. Rakoff. Rakoff is a federal judge who specializes in white-collar crimes. The book is exactly what it says it is. It's describing the justice system in America right now, and he has some suggestions about how to change it, many of which I think may involve giving more power to judges. Considering he's a judge, it's kind of the argument he was going to make. But if you're interested and you want to learn more, it comes out February 16th. All right. So this is our true crime contribution for the month. We Own This City, a true story of crime, cops, corruption in an American city. So there were a team of cops in Baltimore called the Gun Trace Task Force. As best I can tell, they dealt with narcotics, but they were also pocketing a lot of the money that they were seizing in drug arrests and to stay in front of the, what is this called? Internal Affairs, IA, within the police department who investigate corruption. They were like planting evidence and things. And all of this led to a trial in 2018 where several of the cops were convicted, as best I can tell. So Justin Fenton is a journalist who wanted to write about this story, which I'm betting is pretty fascinating and compelling. If you're interested in reading We Own This City, it comes out February 23rd. All right, and we'll end on a slightly lighter note. Do Better, Spiritual Activism for Fighting and Healing from White Supremacy by Rachel Ricketts. This is actually a guidebook, and I think she's got insights to share in it as well, but it is from the perspective of someone who wants change. So the author uses what she calls heart-based and spiritually based perspectives to guide people through this fight with white supremacy. So the guidebook can help you unpack your own privilege, give you ideas about how to take action, and how to take care of yourself as all of these emotions are stirred up and all of this conflict is made clear to you. It actually got a Kirkus starred review. Kirkus, how do I put this? I'm sure other people other than librarians read it, but it is commonly read by librarians for choosing which books to buy. And they tend to be somewhat withholding in terms of praise. I think one of our librarians at one point said, I only read Kirkus to find out why not to buy a book. So if they gave this one of their starred reviews, which is not only a good review, but a good review they wanted to highlight, then it's probably worth checking out. And it will come out on February 2nd. All right, let's move on to some new series. If you're looking for a mystery series to start on, these are all book ones. Okay, Water Memory by Daniel Pine. This is about a Black ops specialist who has serial concussion syndrome, which means essentially if she gets one more blow to the head, it could kill her, more so than it would if somebody who doesn't have serial concussion syndrome had a blow to the head. And she's on a cargo ship when it's taken over by pirates. So despite her situation, she decides to fight them and evade them. And one of the things that pulls her through this conflict and makes her determined to get back to land is her children. It's got a smallish group of reviews so far, but they seem to like it. They gave it a 3.92 on Goodreads. If you're interested in Water Memory, which again is book one of a series, so maybe an interesting series about this Black ops specialist, it comes out on February 1st. Okay, Killer Content by Olivia Black. Looks like it's a cozy, so a cozy mystery that, you know, murder that's not too murdery. And let me open this up. Here we go. It's about a lady from the bayou who goes to live in Brooklyn. A friend of hers, who is a rising YouTube person, dies, and it happens at the same time someone else is filming their proposal. So that her dying is in the background of the video, and the video goes viral. Now, our friend from the bayou thinks that there's something wrong about this, even though the people around her don't believe that. So she decides to go and investigate. So yeah, a cozy with a social media kind of an angle. If you're interested in killer content, it comes out February 2nd. All right, Best Laid Plans by Gwen Florio. One of my coworkers said she really likes to hear me mispronounce names, so I'm just going to keep trying. Okay, so I really like the description of this one because I think my mother would love this book. She likes to watch YouTube videos about people who are traveling around the country in Airstream trailers and renovated buses and all that kind of thing. But this is about a 50-year-old woman who has a seemingly perfect life, and she decides to go traveling with her husband in an Airstream trailer. And then at her bon voyage party, she finds her husband in a compromising situation with a friend of hers and decides to just get in the Airstream trailer and go off without him. She ends up at a campground in Wyoming, and she meets a really nice couple there who run it, who are very sympathetic. And then not after that, the wife comes to her distressed because the husband is missing and there's like a bloody scene at the campsite. So obviously a mystery ensues, and for some reason she's a suspect because mystery. So there aren't any early reviews on this, but Florio is a pretty well-liked mystery author. Her books tend to hover in the high 3 stars. So if you're interested in the best laid plans, it comes out February 2nd. A feeling everywhere that woman travels with an Airstream trailer, somebody's going to die. Much like Jessica Fletcher on Murder, She Wrote. Anyway, moving on. Finlay Donovan is Killing It by Ellie Minotaur. This is another mystery with, doesn't really have, for some reason I decided there was a social media angle to this one, but there isn't. There actually isn't much description for this book. All I have is that this is a new series, and the main character is a suspense novelist, and then she gets tangled up in a real-life murder. It's been described as witty and fast-paced. Yeah, I thought for a minute I got the author's name wrong, which always feels silly when it's on a slide next to an image of the book with the author's name on it. But anyway, so far it has 4.37 stars on Goodreads, which is very high. If you're interested in it, it comes out February 2nd. All right, let's move to the standalone fiction, of which I have many. There's so much mystery coming out in February. This is a very pared down list because otherwise we would be here all day. Okay, Black Widows by Kate Quinn. So Blake is dead, and they think his wife killed him, except they're not sure which one of his wives because he's a polygamist who lives on a ranch in Utah. The first wife is very dutiful, but she has her secrets. The second wife is more of a rebel and is prone to addiction. And the third wife is young and inexperienced and not sure of the situation. When he's murdered, everyone suspects that it's one of them, and they suspect each other. Secret starts to come out, including a possible fourth wife. This is a debut novel. They were comparing it to The Wife Between Us and The Dry. So far, there's about 100 reviews, and they're giving it a strong 3.8 star rating, which is pretty good. If you're interested in Black Widows, it comes out February 9th. All right, Hide in Place. Hide in Place by Emily Neymark. Neymark? Okay. Lainey left the NYPD when, I think it was a drug case. No, sorry, a case involving the Russian mob went horribly wrong. She's basically hiding. She goes to a town in upstate New York with her son, and then her son disappears. And the local authorities assume that he ran away. She has reason to be suspicious, but these people don't know who she is. So it's not like she can just tell them, the Russian mob might have kidnapped my son. Could you please look into that? So she has to investigate it herself. And as she's finding the connections and revealing them, other people around her are realizing who she is, which puts her in danger. We're going to get to a place where she's racing to find her son while the criminals are racing to find her. This is Neymark's first novel, and being a debut novel, we don't have enough reviews really to comment on, but I thought it looked really interesting, and it comes out February 9th. All right. The book that I have repeatedly referred to as Lola on Fire. Lola on Fire by Rhea Ewers? I don't know. Let's call this author Rio from now on. Okay. Lola on Fire is about Brody. He robs a convenience store because he needs money to pay for his sister's medication. As he's leaving, he sort of bumps into a woman and loses his wallet in that sort of moment. She calls him later and says, I have your wallet, and the only way you're going to get it back if you are willing to steal something from my stepmother's house for me. So he goes to steal, I think it's a necklace from the stepmother's house, and he gets there and there's like a gruesome crime scene. And there's a security camera. So now he looks suspect and he thinks he was probably framed. At this point, he grabs his sister and goes on the run. As they're running, they're starting to understand how these criminals are connected to them, and which they're deeply connected to them. The handful of reviews are giving it 4 stars on Goodreads, which is pretty good. And surprise, surprise, it's today's giveaway. Okay, if you would like to win Lola on Fire, then it's, okay, as always, write I want to win in the comments and your MPL location for pickup, the preferred MPL location for pickup. Our giveaway is going to end on Friday, January 15th at 9 a.m. I will remind you again at the end of the show, but yeah, the book looks good and interesting. If you'd rather check it out from the library, that's also a valid choice. It will come out on February 16th. All right. Do No Harm, which looks like a really good book, but I really want to make fun of it just a little bit. It's about a doctor with a seemingly perfect life, which is always how these stories begin. And her son is diagnosed with cancer. So in order to afford the expensive treatment, she starts selling opioids. I feel like Breaking Bad has convinced writers that this kind of thing happens more often than it really does. But anyway, for some reason, she's not telling her husband. He is a cop, so, that might be the reason. But the thing is, I don't get how you're planning on coming up with thousands of dollars for an expensive medical treatment. What on earth are you telling your spouse as far as, because it's their kid. It's not like it's her child and he has nothing to, it's their child. So at some point she must be reassuring him, no, I can get the money for the thing. I can get the money for the treatment. I just have to do this thing I'm not going to tell you about and you can't know about. Or she's lying. That struck me as odd. I'm sure there is a reason. It's in the book. But anyway, someone in the drug world she's now in gets killed, and not by her, but she's a suspect because murder mystery. And now she's both trying to find who killed this person and running from her husband, who has been assigned this case as a police officer, which means that he must be completely not knowing about the whole selling of the opioids for the son's treatment. So it's the tagline for this one is, will the truth catch her before she can save her son? It's got a handful of good reviews on Goodreads. They are putting it at over 4 stars. If you're interested in Do No Harm, despite all my making fun of it, it comes out on February 16th. All right, this one has an Alabama setting, and based on the water, I almost think it's got a coastal Alabama setting, which we always like. Okay, Jory's boyfriend disappeared 13 years ago, but now she's returned to Alabama to take care of her ailing grandmother and her autistic brother. She starts to uncover the truth about some of these things that happened, and the people responsible are capable of murder to keep her quiet. So they kidnap her brother, and now she has to decide between protecting her family and letting murderers go free. Lots of reviews are giving it an almost 4-star rating on Goodreads, which is a pretty good rating. Again, Alabama setting. It comes out on February 1st. All right, The Burning Girls. This might be really interesting. I know I say that about a lot of them, but this is genuinely different because it's kind of a riff on the English countryside murder, but they've gotten almost deeper in history to talk about it. Okay, so in The Burning Girls by C.J. Tudor, a new vicar and his daughter arrive at his new assigned village in the English countryside. Turns out the town has a really weird, secretive past. 500 years ago, 8 people were burned at the stake. 30 years ago, 2 girls went missing. And 2 months ago, the previous vicar killed himself. So the new vicar even gets this odd welcoming package. And once he opens it, he realizes it's an exorcism kit. I feel like we're going to a very religious zealot kind of a place, maybe. There's even some hint there might be supernatural stuff in this one, but that's not super clear, which makes me think someone's going to believe it's supernatural and it will turn out not to be the case, a la Scooby-Doo. But this, in case you're interested, the early reviews are giving it over 4 stars, and The Burning Girls comes out February 9th. All right. This is sort of murder mystery meets historical fiction. Dangerous Women by Hope Adams is a fictional account of the real-life ship Raja, I believe. It was in 1840, I think. It took 200 female convicts from England to Australia. As they leave the land, the women start to bond because presumably they didn't know each other before this. But then one of them is attacked and everyone is a suspect. They've been convicted mostly of petty crimes, but there is a murderer on board. There's someone who's lying and has in fact killed someone. Because this is a debut novel, we don't have very many reviews, but we do have a handful, and they're putting it at a solid 4 stars. I think it looks really interesting. It has also a sort of not a locked door mystery, but sort of an ocean mystery, like you're all stuck on the boat together and one of you is dangerous, and what are you going to do about that? So, yeah. Anyway, if you're interested in Dangerous Women, it comes out February 16th. All right. Let's go on to my final thoughts because we're almost done. If you would like to win Lola on Fire, write I want to win in the comments and your preferred MPL location for pickup. Don't forget the MPL pre-orders newsletter if you haven't. I think most of you are subscribed, but I try to remind you just in case you haven't. And we are in Goodreads, and I've started adding memes to the photo section just because I thought it would be fun and because I've collected so many of these. And I love to put them at the end of this thing, but then some of them are so visual I can't do them justice. So I've added those. You can go give them a look and tell me if they're funny or annoying. We have one more to do before we go. Scout in To Kill a Mockingbird. I wonder who's leaving us these gifts on Boo Radley's property, outside Boo Radley's house, in Boo Radley's tree, right in front of Boo Radley's gate. I bet it's Miss Maudie. All right, have a great week, guys. And I am out. See you next week.